Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Pillowtalk Podcast. And this time, like a few of our previous episodes, we do have a guest with us. This guest is not a celebrity, this guest is not someone that you know of or anyone that you would want to watch out for on social media. But this is a guest who got butthurt about the fact that we mentioned in our third episode that we have only one other friend. So if you haven't checked that episode out, please do that right now. But as far as this episode goes, it's going to be a very, very fun episode because we are going to be talking about stories from our school, from the boards, and whatnot. And this is why we have another person, a guest joining us who claims to be another friend of ours. And the reason why we chose him for this episode is because talking about school stories, I think he's actually reached the pinnacle of that because he is someone who went to his school farewell on top of an actual elephant. I don't think it could get any worse than this, it could get any stupider than this, but that's what we're here to find out in this episode today. So Armaan Dewan, would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners?
Before Armaan introduces himself, I just want to talk about how the elephant started walking from Ghaziabad the day before the day before the actual farewell and reached on the day of farewell. So it took roughly about 12 hours for the elephant to reach from Ghaziabad to RK Puram. And Armaan came on top of that elephant. Armaan, go ahead, introduce yourself.
All right. Hey guys. So I'm the guy who apparently got butt hurt. My name is Armaan Dewan. And to put it out in the very beginning, Raj is not the only friend these two guys have. And so the three of us started in the same college up to the point where Jay decided to be a bitch. And we've stuck in nonetheless. I hope it goes that way. And I'm extremely delighted to be a part of this podcast in the due course of time.
Armaan, can you
Armaan,
stop being so formal? I mean, this is
yeah,
not your Deloitte interview, this is just a podcast.
but no, honestly, now that we've talked about how you entered the farewell, do you have another very important story from the farewell to tell us?
See, I'll tell you what happened at the farewell. So, especially in our school, the farewell is a huge deal because year after year, we've seen our seniors coming up to the farewell on horses and horse carts and whatnot. So, night before the farewell, me and my friend got on a conference call and we ended up discussing the weirdest possible ideas, saying कि घोड़े पे तो सब आते हैं, गधे पे जाएंगे and things like that. So, impulsively, one of my friends popped up with the idea that we need to think about something big. So, let's decide on an elephant. Now, for any normal and rational person, the idea is unreal from the very beginning. But for a 12th grader who has to attend his farewell tomorrow, it was the best idea in the world. So we somehow managed to contact this guy and we managed to book an elephant. Now, the next morning, all of us meet up at a friend's place. We're getting ready and we're getting calls from our friends that they've returned the horses and they've returned whatever fancy cars from the very gate itself. So there's no point,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So in the morning, we call up that guy saying, "के sir, booking आप cancel कर लीजिए, नहीं हो पाएगा." But they're like, "sir, देखिए हाथी तो चल चुका है." And basically, then we meet at the spot where the elephant had to come, and now we're climbing on top of the elephant, and someone from the school faculty contacted the principal that there's a bunch of hooligans who are coming on an elephant. So they specially put in barricades on the road to stop us from entering the school vicinity.
But I think you achieved your goal of attracting a lot of eyes towards you by entering on an elephant. So I think your goal was complete after the whole mission.
I guess, but like we're also the sole reason why farewells are boring now at our
Oh
school.
yeah, you put the bar too high for the rest of the juniors to touch, right?
And also
Because
a lot of
now,
regulations.
sorry.
And also a lot of regulations that have come into place to stop
Oh yeah, yeah. But I think what stands out for me, apart from the farewell in class 12th, not stands out, but the only thing that was in my mind during my whole 12th was the board examinations that we had. And those are essentially what we really want to talk about today, because the boards were both a major roller coaster and a great experience for, I think, all three of us, irrespective of how bad we feel about our results in retrospect. But I think we all can sit down and laugh about the experiences that we had throughout the boards. And one such experience that connects me and Jay is the maths board, where I remember. So just for some context for people who don't know Jay and me for that matter, we both are very terrified of math. While both of us are terrified, I perform slightly better than Jay at math, and Jay's downright shit at maths. Okay, so so throughout 11th and 12th, I had just seen Jay struggle with math with every question, try out different tutors and everything, and now you don't expect Jay to be very calm or be doing very well during the boards exam, right? So right before the exam, I remember I was in a very happy mood and I was very confident and I was hugging everyone. I was like, "Don't worry, bro. Be all good. Chill. No worries, no worries." And I'm being that guy who's literally calming everyone down. Now the exam starts, and while we're divided into two classes because we had like 50 odd people in our class, so we were all doing our exams, and suddenly, and in our class there are like a lot of toppers. Like there were people who were going to score 99 and 100 on that examination, and I'm looking at them thinking ki, this guy's just writing, and suddenly out of nowhere, after like the second question that I've attempted, like that's probably 30 minutes into the examination, suddenly I hear a call from Jay asking for an extra sheet. And at that moment I just dropped down my pen and I started laughing in the middle of the classroom. I'm laughing, and even the invigilator like, "Bro, what the hell, why are you laughing?" And literally the whole class burst out laughing because nobody expected Jay to be the first one asking for a sheet.
So I'll give you a little more. I'll give you the foundation for why this story is actually funnier to me. Okay, so like Manan mentioned, that we struggled with math. I don't think Manan struggled with it, but I did, and I continued to struggle with it for as long as I did math in school. So again, Manan mentioned that before the exam began, he was this guy who was going around hugging people and trying to calm them down. I think everyone just needs to understand, and Manan also needs to understand that the people who do this are not the people who are calming anyone down, but just pissing them off. And I just refused to participate in all of this because I was scared out of my mind because it was a maths board, right? This was a board that maths teachers in my school had told me to not attempt. They said just don't show up and don't give the exam. So I'm sitting there, I'm waiting for the exam to begin, and the most unlikeliest of people, there one invigilator is supposed to be in the center, right? From the school the students are from. So we had our geography teacher there, and the geography teacher had taught me last in ninth grade, and this is in 12th grade. Okay, so she comes to me before the exam. I don't know why. She comes to me and she asks me, "Jay beta, tu theek hai na?" मैम हाँ मैं तो ठीक हूँ क्योंकि पक्का उसने कहा हाँ मैम पर आपको कैसे पता कि मुझे मैथ्स नहीं आती ये बेटा तेरी शक्ल पे लिखा हुआ है मैंने कहा, हाँ मैम अब देखिए क्या होता है so then cut to us getting the question papers. Okay, so me and Raj, we had discussed this beforehand that सबसे पहले सेक्शन डी देखेंगे अगर उसमें से 6 क्वेश्चन आते हैं तो मतलब पास हो गए. So I got the question paper, I turned to the last page, and I knew all questions in section D. Okay, so I just thumped the table so loud, and the invigilator was like, "What are you doing, bro? This is your board going on." So I said, "I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm just happy." So then I started writing, and suddenly I figured out that now I've already run out of space to write. So I say, "Ma'am, extra sheet." So Manan and another friend of ours who was sitting right behind me, both of them are shocked. They can't believe it that I am asking for a sheet. So, and I know that they're surprised. So I look back, look at them, and Manan is asking me कि bro तूने जगह छोड़ दी है क्या? So मैंने बोला कि नहीं ये तो मेरी जगह खत्म हो गई है and I need an extra sheet to write. And I swear I don't I had great papers apart from maths. I didn't do well on the maths paper, regardless of how many questions I knew. But this is still one of the happiest memories that I have of my boards. So,
Asking for a question,
Arman,
asking for an extra answer sheet before everyone else in the class.
yeah, yeah, and that too when it's the maths board going on. It just had to happen. I'm still so proud of myself for that. I can't tell you.
Yeah, so talking about math board exams, even I have a very interesting story about what happened with me. So, a very important context for that is that for the longest time in my life, I've had a phobia of math. And I have been really bad at math. I have been really bad at math consistently. And when I say consistently, it starts from a very young age. So now, the tuition that I used to go to, somehow I don't know, they, like whatever method he used, and like he's a really famous teacher for being aggressive with students and whatnot. He used to throw chairs at students and things like that. And if you didn't put a plus C for an integration question, you definitely will get a slap on your face. So that kind of tuition. Now, I somehow managed to get an 89 out of 100 in my pre-boards, which was
Damn.
somewhere close to the class topper. And when you look at that kind of a person, you know that she's going to top across the state. So my confidence was on another level. So the tutor also had like superb faith in me that this guy is going to top my tuition. So the next morning, I go to the center, all right, and now me and my friends had a protocol that before every board exam, we used to stand in a huddle and we used to sing an anthem, right? And parents are
Dun,
looking at
dana,
us.
dun, dun, dana, dun, dun, dana,
Exactly,
dun.
exactly, exactly. We used to get the most judgmental looks from parents who have dropped off their children at the center saying कि ऐसे भी बच्चे होते हैं that board exams and they're taking it so lightly and whatnot. So now coming to the story, so I sit down for my math board exam, right? And my tutor had told me to start the exam from the other end, like from the 6 mark.
Yeah, section D.
Yeah,
Yeah.
from section D, right? So I flipped the question paper to section D. The first question was of a differential equation question, right? And
Yeah.
that was the unit I was most afraid of. So I think that let it be koi nahi, we'll start from section A. Now, if you guys remember, and if anybody who's passed 12th in 2017 remembers, section A of that question was the worst section.
Yeah, I remember.
So I start with the first question, second question, I get stuck at the third question. So
Yeah.
now half an hour has passed and I've only attempted 2 marks on my.
2 marks. Yeah. Yeah.
So then I think to myself that let's start with section D again. So I skip the differential equation question and then there's a matrices determinants question. I
Yeah.
solve that and I get my answer in negative. So I solve it again, and then I solve it again, and then I solve it again, and all 4 times my answer comes out to be negative. Now one
Yeah.
hour has passed, and I have still attempted only 2 marks on my math board exam. Now what I do is I am just scrambling through the question paper, and I'm looking for any question that I can possibly answer. And
Yeah.
somehow I managed to find 2 3 easy questions and things like that, and now in 1.5 hours I have attempted 17 marks. So when I left the examination center, the total marks I had attempted were 70 out of 100, and that too in a board exam.
Hmm.
So as soon as I reached home, I put my phone on do not disturb, and that's probably the first time I've locked myself in my room in my entire life. Yeah, so my tuition teacher kept calling me up. Then he called up my parents because he had such high hopes. And I'm in no position to answer to him that I've only attempted these number of marks and what happened.
Yeah, talking about tutors who have high expectations from you, I remember my business studies tutor, and like before my business studies exam, I think like my whole tuition plus J, like everyone, by the time that you take your board examination, you're very confident with BST because you've taken the same test so many times that you remember the answer like in muscle memory, right? So again, I was very confident. This exam, I was confident that I'm scoring 100, not even a 99. I'm scoring 100. Now, I start with like the first question. I start doing it, and I'm very confident that I know everything. And I see my watch. I see, oh, I have a lot of time. I start underlining. I put finishing lines under every question, and by the time I've reached the last question, I've realized that I have 5 minutes, right? And I have 5 minutes left, and I have one six marker to attempt. Now I don't read that six marker properly, and I just write the answer, right? And after I've submitted my answer sheet, I remember turning back, and there was a girl behind me. Shout out Mandrita, and she said, "Manan, इसका आंसर बता, इसका आंसर डेलीगेशन ही है ना?" And for anyone who attempted the 2017 boards, you'll remember this question very vividly. I looked at her and I read the question. I said, "हाँ हाँ, 100% delegation है." She said, "Oh, thank God." And then I realized कि her second last question is my last question in my set. And I realized that I haven't written delegation in this because I didn't read that question, right? And at that moment, where you feel your heart sink, that is what happened, because I realized that I screwed up my six marker, and the 100 that I thought I would get was nowhere close, right? And at that point, I just rushed out of the classroom. I went home. I told mom कि ऐसा ऐसा हुआ है. She said, relax, whatever, whatever. Then I talked to my tutor, and I told her that, ma'am, I know this is the answer, but I've made this mistake, right? And she said, Manan, are you anywhere near a kitchen? And I remember this so vividly. She said, Manan, are you anywhere near a kitchen? I said, yes, ma'am. What happened? She said, take a knife and stab yourself. I said, मैम honestly, अगर आप नहीं कहते मैं तब भी शायद कर ही लेता अभी, because I felt so shit at that point. It was honestly one of the worst mistakes I've ever committed in my board examinations.
And talking about the BST board exam, so I don't know what happened, but so our center, usually they made us sit in classrooms with a strength of say 40 people, but for the BST board exam, they made us sit in a hall where around
Yeah.
70-80 students were sitting all together, and they were sitting fairly close to each other. I mean, like Manan mentioned, right? Mandrita asking him for help with one question. It's not that easy sitting in a proper classroom. So in the hall, it was actually pretty easy. So I remember with the same question, like I wasn't thinking staffing or anything like Manan, but I was confused between decentralization and delegation. Okay, so I wrote delegation, I cut it out. I wrote decentralization, and I still cut it out. And now I'm thinking कि यार please just मेरे को कहीं से कुछ पता चल जाए कि भगवान जी एक sign दे दो कि क्या लिखना है. So then I turned to my right, okay, and Revati is sitting there. So Revati is one of the kids who's always consistently scored, amongst the highest in the class.
Just for a little more context, everyone in our class, including both me and Jay, we had more faith in Revati than we did in ourselves, right?
Yeah, definitely, without a doubt. So Revati is writing a paper, and her papers, half of it is on the desk, half of it is just flying. And on the part that's flying, I can see very clearly that she's written delegation. And the minute I saw delegation, I said, "Ab to ye ho gaya," and I didn't look anywhere else, and I just wrote delegation down. And again, like that was. So many people say that God doesn't help you, but God really does. And if you do wish for something very sincerely, then you will get a sign.
I think so. Yeah, I remember because while I was attempting the question and before the exam, my delegation and decentralization concepts was so clear that I knew all the keywords. कि अगर ये keyword है इसका आंसर ये है, अगर ये keyword है तो इसका आंसर ये है. And I was very confident. And throughout the paper, I was thinking कि अरे इस paper में delegation decentralization का question ही नहीं आया. How stupid! मतलब how can they not give a delegation का question throughout the paper? और ये मेरे को end तक लगता रहा till the time I finished and submitted the paper and checked it with other people. But yeah, that was a very traumatic experience for me. Arman, what is your delegation decentralization story?
Yeah, actually, I do have one. So, like Revati, and I'm not flexing, but my BST teacher gave me 100 in my predicted mark sheet. So my performance in BST throughout 12th was like really good, and it was the paper I was most confident about. So I was writing down the exam. The whole exam was a breeze. I wrote down delegation. I wrote down the points. I knew the answer to that question. Now I step out of the examination center. Everybody's, like everybody's really confused. If it's delegation, it's decentralization. Everybody's lost their minds. And like in full confidence, I step out and I'm like, this page number, this point, there's the answer, right? And I show them my book. And now what happens is that at least in Manan's case, it was his fault that he didn't read the question. In my
Yeah.
case, it wasn't my fault because a friend of mine who any abuse is less, he made an arrow to switch answers of decentralization and delegation in my book. So
Oh,
basically, what I had crammed up while I was going to the examination center was an inverse answer. So I identified delegation, but I wrote the content for decentralization.
oh shit. I I mean, I think every person's experience from that business studies 2017 board is so different to one another, and it's so cringeworthy after a point of time because you realize that it like everyone was so stupid back then that we made these mistakes, and now thankfully we can laugh about it. But this reminds me of another board of our eco board, and Jay and I had the same tutor in 12th, right? And I remember after and before the exam again, ma'am had extreme confidence in all of us, like her whole batch, me, Raj, Jay, Revati, Sanya, everyone who'd gone to the tuition. She had extreme confidence in keep you'll do well. So right after the exam, I call her. I said, "Ma'am, 100 नहीं तो 99 तो गारंटी है." तो मैम सेड इतना अच्छा हुआ. मैंने बोला हाँ मैम बहुत अच्छा हुआ, वन ऑफ माय बेस्ट पेपर्स येट. Cut to result day, right? So I so through some scam, I got my result at 8 a.m., right? As compared to everyone who got it at 10 a.m. I got it at 8 a.m. And but I got my result with the paper code, right? So I didn't know मैंने किस में क्या स्कोर किया. I just knew the paper code and the marks. So my sister read out the paper code and she said 91. I said, I hope it's not English because English used to come in our best four. So like, I hope it's not English. I thought, okay, it has to be either BST or maths. It can't be anything else, right? And then I check my this thing, my what is that card called? Your admit card. So I check my admit card and I see it's economics, and I was like, "Ki, economics at 91," and I think at that point I was so shocked that I never thought I would get a 91 in economics, and I didn't even have the balls to call my teacher after that and tell her that I scored a 91. But then I realized that everyone in our class scored shitty. Like even Jay scored shitty marks, even Revati scored bad. So nobody got the expected 99 or 100, but we all got very bad marks in economics according to our standard.
See, I want to talk about another phenomena, which I'm actually curious if it's prevalent only in my school or if it was in your school as well. Fine. So, do you think that there's a point in 12th after which students literally stop acknowledging the fact that they're still a part of that school? Because I clearly remember that after the half yearlies, there was a mob of like 100 students who used to step out from their classes in the homeroom period itself. And we used to do the weirdest kind of things. We used to play some random games. Like we used to play Maram Pitti, and like you would leave above if you played it with a leather ball. And we used to stand up in the canteen from the third period. And we used to get our Bluetooth speakers and we used to randomly start dancing in corridors and things like that.
I definitely think that,
I think this is just
yeah.
this is a very Arkepuram thing, Arman, that you mentioned. Going to the canteen, not so much, but yeah, stepping out in the corridor and playing Maran Pitti with a leather ball. I don't see what part of that is fun and why anyone would want to do
Plus, I
that.
think I think all of
But
our 12th experiences have been very different from one another. Like the 12th that Jay attended from my school was very different to the 12th that I attended from the same school, right? So all our experiences have been very different. Even though our teachers were the same, our tutors were 90% same, but we still had that difference in the level of what should I say? Um
Enjoyment, excitement.
yeah, enjoyment, the last few months wala time where you're just like, oh my god, school's ending and stuff. So I think all of that is very different for different people, which is why 12th is such an experience for everyone across India.
yeah, and so The one thing that I want to add about the eco paper is that before entering, right, Manan, me and Raj, we made it a point to go to ma'am कि ma'am आज तो 100 ही आ रहे हैं. And as soon as we exited, before calling my mom or my dad, the first phone I dialed was Malini ma'am. And I said, ma'am देखो एक MCQ मुझे पता है गलत है तो 99 आ रहे हैं. तो मैम बोला कि हाँ मनन का भी फोन आया, वो भी यही कह रहा है और राज भी यही कह रहा है. तो मैं बोला मैम हमने तो बोला ही था आपको जाने से पहले. एंड देन कट टू रिजल्ट दे, किसी के 99 नहीं आए, किसी के 100 नहीं आए. And that brings me to my final question is that, so we've seen, when we were in 12th we were also guilty of this, right? We put so much importance on how much we scored in our boards, how every single paper went, and just putting ourselves through unnecessary stress because of
Yeah.
this. But right now, look at us, like we don't have any cares in the world to give about our board exams, and it's just stories that we can sit down and talk about and have fun. So Armaan, Manan, what would you want to tell other people who are going through this stress of dealing with their board results right now?
I think, I mean, I completely understand that it's a very challenging part of everyone's life. And when we were there, we felt the same amount of stress. But honestly, I think people understand with time that it doesn't really matter that much. And I know it's very cliche that that your marks don't matter and stuff. Yes, they do, but for a very short while. After you enter college, nobody cares about your marks. And once you've passed like 2-3 years from your boards, I think everything becomes a funny experience and like shit to talk about over alcohol or over dinners, where you can just talk about what your experience in 12th was, and it just becomes like a funny segment like this one. What about you, Arman?
See, I think what I would like to say is that it all depends on what you make out of what you get. So, for personally me, I was really upset about the college that I had gotten into. But honestly, the last 3 years have been the steepest learning curve that I have had in my life. I have changed as a person, my confidence levels have gone up. I have started participating in extracurriculars, and now the board result is just a number to me. So, honestly, whatever college you land up in, whatever path that you choose for your life, it actually all depends on whether you want to put in hard work and if you want to bring in a change. And like Manan said, now it's just things we talk about without having any kind of impact on our lives.
I think we can conclude this episode of the Pillowtalk podcast. Thank you so much, Arman, for sitting with us and talking about your fun yet traumatic experiences about 2017 board examinations. If you like this episode, do let us know. If you want us to do more episodes like these, we can definitely do, because we had 5 exams and we have still a lot of stories to talk about. So, and if you want to say anything, please reach out to us on our Instagram page at the Pillow Talk _ podcast. If you want to reach out, Arman, he's there in our following. You'll find him there. So check him out as well. Thank you so much, Arman. That's it for today's episode. Thanks, guys.